This is Jack Hibbs, a California pastor, and yesterday during his sermon, he had a few choice words for the Democrats that are destroying his state. Check this out.
We have watched the absolute exposure of the most incompetent, reserve your applause to the end. Nobody can hide from this. Nobody can hide from it. There's no excuses. This is the most wealthiest state in the 50. We pay the most in taxes. We pay the most in gas. We pay the most in electricity. You name it. If it's in California, we pay the most for it. Why? Why? Because of our government. Why? Because of things that Sacramento does because they can. Our flag of this state is an absolute abject lie. The flag says California Republic. It is not. A republic is where the people decide and the people have their way. What has happened to California? And you prove me wrong. I challenge you today if you don't like what I'm about to say. California has been under unmitigated Democrat 100% power control. Democrat. Supermajority. What does that mean, supermajority? It means nobody can oppose their decision making. And now you've got it. You've got a situation where a catastrophe came and the billions of dollars that you and I gave was diverted to other woke, stupid Democrat projects. That's not hyperbole. It is a fact. You don't like it, change your party.
Now, if you don't know what he's talking about there, Biden actually claimed that the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power was to blame because they shut off power to lines that were connected supposedly to fire hydrants, preventing the hydrants from working. So it was a bureaucratic snafu in a sense. We now know that's simply not true. The hydrants weren't working because there was no water. And there was no water because water was diverted to the San Francisco estuary in order to try to save an endangered fish, the Delta smelt. So mismanagement from Sacramento is why the hydrants didn't work. And then he mentioned the utterly inexcusable behavior of LA Mayor Karen Bass, who not only was in Africa during the fires, but had literally nothing. And nothing. Not one word to say when she got off the plane back in LA while her city was burning. And then he mentioned a viral photo of Gavin Newsom sharing a laugh at the case camp in Malibu as firefighters were continuing to struggle against the growing and expanding inferno that was claiming even more lives. Now the death tolls hit over 20 since the weekend. And so Pastor Hibbs is calling on all Christians throughout the Golden State to rise up and replace these incompetent and frankly evil leaders. Now, if you don't know Pastor Jack Hibbs, he's the pastor of Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. He's no stranger in taking on the state of California. Check this report out.
Strong words today from State Attorney General Rob Bonta. His office is suing the Chino Valley Unified School District for a policy requiring parents to be notified if their child is transgender.
This policy has managed to violate multiple constitutional rights of our students, multiple statutory rights of our students, their right to privacy, their right to equal protection, their right to be free from discrimination.
Bonta announcing the lawsuit in downtown LA. His goal is to stop enforcement of a rule passed by the Chino Valley School Board last month. Requires parents to be notified if their children change their gender identity. Bonta adds outing kids before they're ready could cause serious psychological harm, may even put them in physical danger in households that bash LGBTQ lifestyles.
Now, over the last couple of years, Calvary Chapel, under Hibbs' leadership, has actually spearheaded a takeover of their county public school board, a takeover that's effectively turned the schools all throughout the county back in alignment with the far more conservative values of the vast majority of parents. But as you saw, the ultra-woke California Attorney General, as part of this DEI dictatorship in Sacramento that Pastor Hibbs is talking about here, He announced immediately that the state would sue the Chino Valley Unified School District Board of Education over this policy requiring schools to inform parents if there's a change in their child's gender identification. That's worthy of being sued as far as the lunatics in Sacramento are concerned. They're actually suing the Board of Education for the requirement of informing parents that their kids are questioning their gender. So that's why, gang, in my view, this goes way beyond calling for resignations. It is that most certainly is happening, I'm glad to say. Here's Stephen A. Smith adding his name to the growing calls for both the governor and the LA mayor to resign.
They got to go.
They got to go. You know what? They got to go. I don't give a damn if they do. After what I've seen last week, they got to go. I'm done. I'm done, Kevin. I'm done.
Steve, sometimes there are natural disasters you can't do a damn thing about. When a hurricane hits your house down in Florida, what can you do? Are you yelling at the politicians to stand out there and stop the winds?
Kev, I'm not going off about the fires. The fires is not their fault. But when firefighters are standing there and saying there's not enough water in the fire hydrant.
That's true.
When Donald Trump asked for water to be pumped from Canada into the LA system and Gavin Newsom opposed that. When you're hearing about environmentalists compelling him to protect smelt and little fish and salmon at the expense of LA citizens, of California citizens, Kevin, I don't need much else than that. I just don't. Maybe you're nicer than me. Maybe I'm too cruel. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
Hey, gang, you know we look out for each other here on this channel, and your health is our number one priority. So if you're one of the 100 million Americans struggling with all the weight gain and loss of energy that comes with a fatty liver, you have got to try Liver Health Formula. It's an all-natural supplement. It contains 12 clinically proven botanicals that help recharge and protect your liver. It's manufactured right here in the USA, and it's approved by independent American doctors. And if you click on that link below right now, you can try Liver Health Formula and receive a free bottle of blood sugar formula when you order today. So don't let a fatty liver keep you sluggish and inactive. Click on that link below right now or go to getliverhelp.com/Turley and claim your free bonus gift. That's getliverhelp.com/Turley. Well, while I'm very happy to see that Stephen A. Smith finally seems to be getting it, I think this goes way, way, way beyond calling for resignations. And Jesse Waters of Fox News thinks so as well. He is now calling for a federal takeover of California. Take a look.
Primetime's calling for a federal takeover of California. When a state becomes this dangerous and the government becomes this reckless, where the lives of millions of American citizens are being destroyed, their homes obliterated, their infrastructure annihilated, we can't wait for a recall election. This is an issue of national security. This is a public health emergency. We know they have public health emergency powers. Remember the pandemic? Invoke them. The elected officials in California can't be trusted. They're criminally negligent. Look at what we're seeing. This is a war scene. And if anyone thinks that people who are responsible for this catastrophe are going to somehow rebuild, you're out of your mind. If they're left in charge to rebuild LA, they're going to steal the money. Nothing's going to get rebuilt. Everyone's going to get screwed. This is biblical level destruction. And the city of LA is hosting the Olympics in 4 years. There's no way we can showcase LA to the world. A full federal takeover is needed. Invoke the Stafford Act. The state's overwhelmed. Martial law might have to be declared.
Well, we've been saying on this channel, well, many have been saying that Los Angeles voters are basically reaping what they've sowed. In the end, they voted for this. I just texted a good friend of mine in the classical Christian school movement who's a professor at a Christian university out in the LA area just to make sure he was doing okay. And he's fine, thank God. But he didn't mince words in his text back to me. LA is getting what they voted for. 64% of LA County voted for Kamala Harris. They voted for this Democrat incompetence. But what Jesse Waters is getting at here is that when your voting affects the security of the rest of the nation, when your incompetent leaders that you put into office pose a bona fide national security risk, that's when it's time for the federal government to step in. We are so beyond simply resignations here, because who's going to replace them? Who's going to replace Gavin Newsom? Who's going to replace this utter incompetent moron LA mayor? Who's going to replace that lunatic attorney general who's suing school boards because they want informed parental consent? I mean, California has been taken over by lunatics. And that's exactly what Joe Rogan and Mel Gibson were just talking about, how California represents really nothing less than a literal, genuine, civilizational collapse.
Yeah, we were just talking about the wildfire situation and how crazy it is that they spent $24 billion last year on the homeless.
Yeah.
And what did they spend on preventing these wildfires?
Zero.
Not zip.
Zip. And in 2019, I think Newsom said, I'm going to take care of the forests and maintain the forests and do all that kind of stuff. He didn't do anything.
Didn't do anything. And then on top of that, they cut the water off.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's all funny. And then I think all our tax dollars probably went for Gavin's hair gel. I don't know, but it's like, it's sad. It's like the place is just on fire.
Well, the whole state is just so poorly managed. It's so frustrating and confusing. And then he gets on TV and pretends like everything's great. Mm-hmm. And California's the best. We have the best state. We have the most amazing economy. And you're out of your fucking mind, dude. You've ruined this state. Personally ruined it.
Well, it's the same team that was up in San Francisco, and they came down to L.A. and they're doing what they did in San Francisco. And San Francisco's kind of like apocalyptic now,
Yeah.
I went there and it's just like people, homeless. It's a mess.
It's just unbelievable that society can crumble that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
It really is unbelievable.
It doesn't take long.
No.
Yeah. I read a book once by Jared Diamond called Collapse. Mm-hmm. Have you ever read that book?
Yeah.
Crazy, right? It says all the things you need for a civilization to cave in and collapse. And a lot of the things are present. All those earmarks, the precursors of a collapse, they're present in our time. So it's an interesting observation.
Yeah.
Now, some of you may be familiar with the work of Jared Diamond, fascinating scholar. He wrote a very influential book, Guns, Germs, and Steel. Are you familiar with that one? Where he traced out how the unequal distribution of commodities were actually determinative to a large extent as to which civilizations were able to survive and flourish. Well, his other book, Collapse, is the opposite. It's on why civilizations fail. And he identified 5 factors that contribute to societal collapse. So climate change, and he's not talking about like modern, environmentalist climate. He's talking about pre-industrial natural changes in the climate that can be very have adverse effects on the civilization. So climate change, obviously hostile neighbors, hostile trade partners, environmental and ecological problems, right? Floods, tornadoes, and earthquakes and the like. All societies have to deal with this. They don't have a lot of control over these first 4 factors. What's key for Diamond is the 5th. It's the 5th factor. And that's a society's response to the other 4. That is what society largely has control over, especially a supposed democratic republic. The first 4, the problems with environments, the problem with neighbors and the like, every society's got to confront problems like that in some way, shape, or form. They may or may not prove significant in a society's demise. But the 5th, the way a society's leadership responds to those adversities, that always pretty much is the primary contributing factor to a civilization's collapse. The salient point that Diamond makes is that a society's response to environmental problems is completely within its control. And that's why the subtitle to his book is How Societies Choose to Fail. And that is the heart of what Mel and Joe were talking about there. California is choosing to fail. And if that choice is putting the safety and security of the rest of the nation at risk, then it may indeed be time for a full federal takeover of the increasingly failed society of California. We'll see how things develop. And there's all kinds of reasons why that's a whole nother video as to why they're deliberately failing. I think it has a lot to do with the guilt that's imposed upon us by cultural Marxism. Regardless, bottom line, we are looking today at a failed society in California. And if that failed society really does prove to be a national security risk, I'm all for Donald J. Trump and the federal government taking over that state and transforming it once and for all.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. This will truly be the golden age of America.